Fun facts. My name is Prachi. The fearsome Viking warriors used to wear knit caps with pom-poms on top to keep themselves warm in the winter. And this is my version of the makeup collection tag. The makeup collection tag was created by the incredible and lovely Georgia Harris. I've been subscribed to and watching Georgia's content for the longest time. Georgia always has the most incredible eye makeup. She has really vivid and interesting lipstick colors, the most bubbly and warm personality, and always a wicked beanie. Or as we Canadians would like to call it, a toque. Anyway, it's in honor of Georgia's incredible eyeshadow skills and stunning beanie collection that I'm dressed like this today. Georgia created this tag last week and I watched her video and then a bunch of other people's videos and I was like, oh, I totally want to do this. So I have seized the opportunity and here we are. So without any further ado, let's get it. I started collecting makeup probably around when I turned 18. In 2012, because that's when I got my very first job. And so I suddenly had income lying around that didn't have to go towards rent or bills or utilities, because at that point I was still wrapping up high school. I was interested in pretty much only 3 things at that time: reading, listening to music, and beauty YouTube, because I had discovered the beauty YouTube community and just kind of gotten super sucked in and watched all these videos, but I didn't have the economic means or capability to buy any of that makeup myself. And so I remember after I started working, getting my very first paycheck and suddenly having several $100s with which I could do things. And one of the first things I bought, well, the first thing I bought was actually my favorite album at that time, which was In Rainbows by Radiohead. Radiohead had actually offered that album for free and I had downloaded it way back then, but I loved it so much I was like, the day I get money, I'm gonna spend it on that album. And so I did. The rest of my paycheck I used to buy, I remember, a couple of nail polishes and a foundation. It was just a drugstore L'Oreal foundation, but it was the very first piece of makeup that I had bought with my own money. And I remember the process for selecting it. It wasn't I just went to the drugstore and picked one out. I watched hours and hours of YouTube videos and I determined that at that time the best drugstore foundation for women of color was the L'Oreal True Match. And then I marched into the pharmacy and bought it. And that was the start of me buying and collecting makeup. It wasn't the start of me loving makeup, I want to make that very clear. I loved makeup before then, but it was the start of me collecting it. Next question. I feel like my collection is kind of random. I feel like there's not really an organizing theme because my collection is the end result of all of these different phases of makeup that I've been through. So for example, I have these Besame lip products, which are historical recreations of the colors and the packaging from the 1940s. And I also have a Stila convertible color, which is very reminiscent of old school rouge pots. But my entire collection isn't historical. Similarly, I kind of went through an eclectic indie eyeshadow and loose pigment phase where I had bought well over 100 loose eyeshadow pigments from indie companies. And then I also have 1 or 2 very sleek, high-end kind of luxury makeup. Not Natasha Denona, Pat McGrath level of luxury, but I do have a Chanel eyeshadow quad and a Marc Jacobs blush that are in sleek black luxe packaging. I think my collection is just a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything that I've loved. It's very me. Next question. So Georgia kind of defined completionist as in when a collection comes out, do you want to buy all of them? Or if there are a bunch of makeup items in a series, do you want to buy all of them? And I'm definitely not a completionist. I don't very often feel the urge to own everything that comes out in a particular collection or everything in a series, let's say all of the Naked palettes. And part of it is that I don't feel the desire to do that, but the other part of it is that it's just never really been a possibility for me because of my skin tone. Now, I know in the grand spectrum of color, I'm still definitely in the light medium to medium category, but traditionally, makeup collections have been so geared towards people who have really light skin tones that the idea of buying everything in a collection and just having it work for me has never been a reality for me. There's always gonna be some lipstick or eyeshadow or blush or bronzer that just lashes out and isn't flattering. Next question. I showed how I kind of like store and organize everything in my makeup collection video, which I'm gonna link in the cards up above if anyone's interested in seeing the full breakdown of all the products. But the basic idea is, so I have this one acrylic Muji drawer where everything fits, and then I have an overflow makeup bag, which is where things that are too tall for those Muji drawers go in. Then I have a cup that holds all of like the pencils and spare brushes. And then finally, I have these two bags that I take with me on my commute. The Muji drawer, the pink overflow bag, and the cup filled with brushes and pencils, they sit at the bottom of my closet. And then the yellow bag and the clear mesh bag, they go with me in either my backpack or my purse or wherever it is, because I don't have a vanity. And so I'm usually doing my makeup on the commute. If, for example, I'm like home for the weekend, I remove them out of my purse and I put them in the bottom of my closet. So my makeup's not really on display, it's not even really in drawers. I kind of have to, when I decide to like switch products out, like stoop down to the bottom part of my closet and get out the Muji drawer and everything else and reorganize it. Next question. Blushes. I love the blush section of my makeup collection. I love that I have different color families, formulas, and finishes, but all of them look really flattering on my skin tone. I also just love looking at blushes. I don't know what it is about me, but like a beautifully designed blush to me is more appealing than a very beautifully designed eyeshadow palette. Like I will look at hundreds of eyeshadow palettes and just kind of be like, eh, but like one very beautifully packaged or designed or embossed blush and I'm like, I need it. So yeah, my blushes are definitely my pride and joy. Next question. I think my eyeshadow game is kind of sad now. Like I was talking about how I had all of these like very beautiful loose indie pigments that were in like a rainbow of colors and beautiful duochrome and iridescent and glittery finishes, and I ended up decluttering the vast majority of them in a round of successive purges over the last few years. And I kind of talked about this in my last video. I used to declutter from a very bad space. Like I used to declutter a lot out of like guilt and comparison and just stress. And so I would have these sort of conversations with myself which were like, you know, Prachi, like if you really wanted to be a lawyer, if you were serious about it, you would know that you can't wear shimmery emerald green eyeshadow. So you need to give all of those away if you're serious about becoming a lawyer in the future. And that's not true at all, because my passion for law and human rights and all of these other like interesting academic things is in no way, shape, or form dampened by my love for beautiful and iridescent green eyeshadow. And even if I did end up becoming, you know, a lawyer at a big law firm where I would absolutely never dare to wear incredibly bold and colorful eye makeup, I'm not going to live at work. I have a life outside of work, and I should be allowed to have fun with my makeup outside of work. So I think slowly after my no-buy year, rebuilding my eyeshadow collection to sort of reflect more of the color and vibrancy that I want to portray with my makeup, that's something I'd like to do. I also do really wish I had a vanity, but I know that as like a student, that's just not feasible for me right now. One day though, one day. My biggest category is single eyeshadows. So I counted it up and I have 32 single eyeshadows. 24 of them are eyeshadow pans that are in like a MAC palette. And then I also have 8 single eyeshadows in their original packaging. So that's like in the Nars, MAC, Urban Decay single eyeshadow packaging. A second runner-up was lip products. I have 27 lipsticks and glosses. I have 2 categories of makeup where I only have 1 product each. I only have 1 setting spray and I only have 1 liquid eyeliner. Next question. The way Georgia framed this was like, what's the crown jewel of your collection? Like, what's the centerpiece? What's the holy grail, the ultimate? And it was so funny because I immediately knew what it was. It's this blush by Nars. If my soul were a piece of makeup, it would be this blush. Like it's me. Like it's just so incredibly me. Like first of all, it's a blush. I've already talked at length about how blushes are absolutely my favorite makeup product. And then the product itself, the color of it, it's this beautiful burnt orangey color and it's shot through with fine gold shimmer. Like It's everything I want in a blush. I love it so, so much. This was the second ever high-end product that I bought. I remember saving up all of my money and looking far and wide for like color dupes for this blush, which nowadays I'm sure color dupes for this blush exist, but in like 2013, they didn't. And so I remember like saving up for like months in 2013 to finally get it. Like it was worth every cent to me. If this broke tomorrow in the middle of my no-buy year, I would be devastated that I couldn't purchase one until February 5th, 2020. And on February 5th, 2020, when my no-buy year ended, it would be the first thing I repurchase. In fact, if somebody took away every single color cosmetic that I owned, all of the eyeshadows, the blushes, the highlights, everything, and they were like, I've taken away all of your colored cosmetics, you can only buy one thing, what's it gonna be? It would be this, because I use this all of the time. I use this in place of blush, I use this in place of highlight, I use this in place of eyeshadow. Like, this is truly me as a makeup product. And the name is Taj Mahal. As a South Asian person, as someone who's half Indian, like, even the name, it's perfect. This is going to be sort of a paradoxical answer. I simultaneously wish that it was bigger and that it was smaller. So here's what I mean. I wish that it were bigger in that there are some very clear gaps in my collection. Like, I have spent the last month and a half lusting after royal blue and emerald and Kelly green eyeshadows and duochrome lemony yellow green eyeshadows as well. And I don't have any of those. There's like very specific colors that I have in mind that I so desperately want that I just don't have. And I know when I'm eventually allowed to buy makeup again, I'm probably going to make a few judicious purchases to expand the color range of my eyeshadows. So in that sense, I want a bigger collection. On the other hand, I feel like there are certain parts of my collection that are too overstuffed. For example, I definitely feel like I have far too many primers and foundations. In an ideal world, I would want only like one foundation and one primer, or at most like two. You know, maybe like a summer color and a winter color for my foundation, and maybe like a more heavy duty pore filling primer plus a more like gripping long wear type of primer. I also think lipsticks is kind of a little bit of an overstuffed category in that I feel like I have quite a few lipsticks that are very, very close to each other in tone to where it's almost imperceptible on my actual lips. And so I would want that segment of my makeup collection to get smaller as well. My entire last video was about this, where I talked about how I was stuck in this very unhealthy loop of decluttering massively every 2 months, but then going out and then constantly buying new makeup to replenish it, then getting stressed out because I had too much makeup and I didn't know where it all fit, and then decluttering it all again. And since I've sort of gone on my no-buy year and the amount of products that have been coming in have stopped, I've started taking a note more of my urge to declutter, and so moving forward, I'm going to be much more careful with how frequently I declutter and how drastically I declutter. So I've put a halt on decluttering. I want it to maybe be like a once a year type of an activity instead of a every single time I'm stressed out kind of an activity. And I think in the context of my no-buy year, I think the next time I'm going to look at decluttering my makeup is in the summer when I have to move. I used to feel such a huge amount of envy when I saw other people's makeup collections, because I was like, oh, if only I was rich, like that would totally be me. I wish I could have that. And now I'm coming to realize, like, first of all, even if I were really rich, I wouldn't want that because the presence of too many things kind of stresses me out. And not just that, as time has passed, I'm increasingly coming to view makeup more as an art form. I would never go to an art museum and admire a painting and then suddenly demand that I own it in my own home. And that's sort of the attitude that I'm beginning to have with makeup now, and I didn't realize it until I watched Hannah Louise Poston talk about the Natasha Denona Gold palette, which was a thing that I had like lusted after for a really long time. And when I saw her kind of talk about it with such great enthusiasm and gusto about how much she loved it, I realized that a part of me had changed, and that instead of being envious of the fact that she had the gold palette and then suddenly wanting that for myself as part of my own collection, I was able to just witness her really love it and leave it at that. And so now when I see other people's makeup collections, instead of feeling envy, I just kind of watch with fascination, because I love hearing about how people utilize their makeup collection and what are the things that they really love about it and what they hate about it and how they like to use things and what techniques they have. And so now when I watch other people's makeup collections, I get excited to hear them talk about something that they so very clearly love, as opposed to thinking, God, wish that were me. 2 makeup collection videos that I saw recently that I really liked. The first was by Zeyn San. Like the way in which she set up her vanity, she set up her desk, there's like a nice view of the street, there's a lot of natural light streaming in. She had this exquisite vintage mirror that her grandmother had given her laid out on the vanity, and there was so much empty space in her collection, like it felt like there was room to breathe, and that each item was very carefully curated and considered. So I really enjoyed watching that. And the second makeup collection video that I saw recently that I really enjoyed was by Hannah, Smokey Glow, and that was like a very long video where Hannah kind of went through all of her drawers and talked about everything, and Hannah's just such a riot to like listen to. She's such an incredible personality, so hearing her talk about makeup for an hour and 10 minutes, like it zipped by. I had a blast. I liked the way in which she organized her drawers. She kind of like went through everything in detail. Like it was really enjoyable. The last person I'm gonna shout out has never uploaded a makeup collection video to my knowledge, but if she did, I would 10 out of 10 watch it. And that's this YouTuber called Matilda. She's an Australian YouTuber, and she often does things like she does the makeup bags of different celebrities, or she does her favorite products. It's this very elegant and minimal style of shooting. It's like an overhead shot on a plain white background. She has the products very beautifully laid out. She'll swatch them, she'll talk about them in detail, and her voice has this like wonderful Australian accent, and so I just love watching her videos. They're really, really soothing. If she ever uploads a makeup collection, I will be on it. I feel like the advice that I can give is advice that's been given to people like 100 times over. I think it's because it's important, which is why people keep on repeating it. And that advice would be to focus on yourself, what you like, what you prefer. Don't get pressured into buying makeup you know you'll likely never use. So, for example, I'm about to say something very unpopular. I don't like Anastasia's eyeshadow formula. I think it's too powdery. I think there's too much fallout. I don't think it's worth the hassle. I think the quality of it deteriorates very quickly. I also think their packaging is terrible, because when you combine a very powdery, loose eyeshadow with velvet packaging, that's like a disaster waiting to happen. And so when I look at my own personal makeup preferences, which is I do makeup on the go, I can't have something that generates a whole bunch of fallout, because I can't clean fallout up on a train. Similarly, I travel with my packaging a lot, so I don't want packaging that gets grimy and dirty. I want something that I can just wipe off. And I also have so much makeup that I know I'm never going to be able to use up an Anastasia palette before it goes bad. So for me, on pretty much every level, Anastasia eyeshadows are a bad idea. And yet for ages, I felt this like weird pressure, because everybody else loves them so much, to buy Anastasia eyeshadows. So I just want to say, like, focus on yourself, know your tastes, know the things that you like, know your pet peeves, and then don't let the hype around things sway you one way or the other. Don't let people convince you that the makeup that you own isn't good or isn't enough. And just have fun. Makeup should be fun and joyous, and comparison is the thief of joy. So enjoy all of the beautiful things that you have. Have fun with them, play with them, and create beauty with them. That's everything from me, folks. Thank you so much to Georgia Harris for having created this amazing tag. And as always, I hope you have a great upcoming week. But even if things are messy and imperfect, I hope that you're still able to create and enjoy some truly beautiful moments. Bye. But you gotta be there for me too.